Today we're going to be doing another meme whisperer, and this is my Twitter. It's at Anuma Salis. If you want to follow me on that, it's not too many followers. I post some of the videos when I post a video here on YouTube or other places. I'll post them also on Twitter, and I'm posting more memes and things like that there. So I might end up doing more with it. I'm kind of thinking what exactly I'm doing with this channel. But today, there's something I found on Twitter. I also find some news, find some interesting things to repost there. So there's some things that are only posted on Twitter. So if you want to follow me there, just go ahead and do it and check it out. So today, I'm just going to talk about this image right here, and this is what I retweeted with it. It's a piece from one of the most, if not the most, popular Kenyan political cartoonists. Some things about this. The guy's name is Gado, and he's at iGado if you want to check him out. So I said, good to see iGado using color so well, pun unintended. And they're usually black and white in newspapers. Again, pun unintended, because I remember growing up when I was in Kenya back in the 90s and things like that, and also just, I was reading newspapers more then. I think I was reading newspapers more then. When I came back again, also after being outside of the country for about 16 years, I was still more into reading newspapers. But he started in the newspapers with black and white stuff. And he has this particular style to his, and so is this in bad taste, or does it show it's primarily about power rather than race? This whole power discrepancy thing. And this is an image of Uhuru Kenyatta, who is the president of Kenya. That's him supposed to be there, as Derek Chauvin, the policeman in the United States of America, who was the primary one kneeling on. He was the one kneeling on the back of George Floyd's neck. And there was other people back here, and then there was another policeman over here just watching and holding people back, making sure people don't come back in. Jubilee is the name of the political party that Uhuru Kenyatta uses, and of course he's putting a crown here because there's more things where they're not necessarily using the actual laws and things like that. They're going outside and being more of a royal of sort and just leading by decree and things like this. And with the judiciary here, I guess he could have put a face of maybe, as you'll see in the comment section here, the judiciary here, this is the judiciary of Kenya, so he's kind of going against the laws and things like that. That's the premise here. Kind of cool signature he has here, this little squiggle thing, I think. And then here, that's George Floyd that's been drawn here. And with this one, I think he's saying this is the power discrepancy. Like, Uhuru Kenyatta, this is how I read this. I saw this. Uhuru Kenyatta has put himself above the basic law. He's not just a president. He's a royal, leading by decree, putting his knee on George Floyd. So he's using undue force. He's going over the law. He's doing things that are actually going to end the actual power and existence, life of the judiciary. So he used George Floyd instead of using a face of maybe a particular person in the judiciary, one of the Supreme Court justices, this or something else, because that might pass. And part of why I'm saying this is useful, this is good, and it's something that's timely. It's something that's going with the current actual occasions and things like that. What's going on in the world right now? And I have a previous post here. Let's go check this out. Right here by BBC Africa, and this is something that has been shown here. Where this is by Larry Madowo. He was posting this. I think a friend of his posted this, and some sound to it. But let's just turn the sound off. I just want to show you that I was watching this, and I've posted before this again how I'm talking about here. This is 10,000 reports of police brutality since 2013, and 6 ended in conviction. And black isn't African. And I already mentioned in the previous post here how this was tweeted out later down below. It was talked about, okay, this is her NY for research. This is somebody who has been posting on my videos for some time. I don't get, there's something about, we're using the same words, but people, like, I often say that I don't think somebody thinks what I think they think. Because if they were saying that and behaving in that way, they wouldn't necessarily actually, I don't see how they would say that and behave that way from those words that they say. And that is a clear example that's given to me by this person over and over again. Some of the things I say, I was like, wow, okay. I post a video about Kenyans and talk about how I've previously said black is a specific tribe in the United States of America that has its own issues and specific interests, culture, histories, and things like that. So when somebody says Black Lives Matter, people shouldn't imagine, like, I don't imagine that it's some sort of all Black Lives Matter. Even in the United States of America, like Joe Biden, when he said, like, oh, look, if you don't vote, if you have a problem thinking who you're going to vote for, if you support me or not, then you're not black. He was kind of right, because for some of the things that are considered part of that culture, part of that being, there's a group. When they talk about Black Lives Matter, they're talking about a certain group of people in a certain area. Just like in Kenya, when they talk about the Luyas, when they talk about the Luos, when they talk about the Kalenjins, they're not talking about every single sub-Saharan African in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa. They're not even talking about all the Kenyans. They're talking about specific groups of people. So when they talk about this, it's not African, it's also North Africa. But anyway, so in this one, 10,000 reports of police brutality since 2013, and only 6 ended in conviction. So yeah, I'm talking about a specific group. Did I say any other group doesn't have a thing? I don't know. But so it's the kind of thing where I'm trying to communicate in certain ways, and sometimes it doesn't work. So why is it that something like the George Floyd thing gets so much more reaction than something like this, where you have police doing things like this, and just the amount of violence and things that goes on? I can imagine if you had actual footage of actual policemen in the United States of America. I mean, there was some violence and some brutality going on, but the definitions of what actual police brutality is in other countries, in the United States of America, is entirely different than here in Kenya. So coming back to this, part of why I was posting this was to show that, look, this is the reaction of things that actually happen here. Where was the other post I posted about something like this? Let me just check. I'm trying to not have some dead air as I'm having this conversation. Look at this. This is a police brutality. This is something else. This is someone just getting slammed. Like, wow. I didn't even know what to say to this. I was thinking, wow. Like, I didn't think people actually pick people up and slam people down. That was absurd. That was a crazy thing for me to see. I was just like, I gotta repost that. Okay, there was something else I posted down here, which was talking about using the George Floyd thing, and they were talking about also the numbers here in Kenya. Here we go. So 95 killed by police so far. Could do with without the Mike Brown hands up don't shoot falsehood. I also suggest you check out this series I have called Hands Up Don't Hit, which is playing on the hands up don't shoot thing, which is found to be false. But in the United States of America, I'm talking about the marketing is different. Something happens in the United States of America because the standards of living are higher. The expectations of people in the United States of America are higher. And I hope we actually start holding other people in other places to those standards of we need to have a better country. We need to live in a better way, where people are less accepting of violations in the United States of America than I've seen anywhere else. Have another video talking about name a country. Think about the place where you would prefer to live as a minority. It doesn't have to be any based on race. I'm not saying as a black minority, as a Negro minority, as I'm talking about any minority. If you're whatever race you think you are, you move to a city, state, country where you are the minority. Which are the countries you'd rather be in, or would be the best places for you to be in that state? Just think about that. Okay, so the false rhetoric as 18%, but 18% as part of enforcing COVID lockdown measures versus 85 dead from COVID. But it's Africa, so not marketable. Again, Black Lives Matter, but black does not equals African. So I'm talking about Black Lives Matter is a movement in the United States of America, but even that is being used as marketing. There was another image I saw where people in the slums had done one of those paintings of a mural of George Floyd that's going around. And the hands up don't shoot thing, see, it's being used here for that. But black, not African, because they've killed like 20 dead. 85 dead from COVID. 85 reported dead from COVID. But they've already killed. The police have killed, 18% was about 18 or something like that. Now you're less than that. It's about 15 dead. Killed in the actual enforcement process of the COVID measures. Other kinds of abuses involved in that, but that's not covered in the same way. So to finish this off, I just want to read some of the reactions here from that initial Gado piece, just to see the different reaction, how local people kind of react to this. And this is what I'll talk about. There's something about the marketing of the United States of America that is very important, and not necessarily just for Americans, because it goes around in the world. Not necessarily just for the negative things that come out of America, because the negative things do come out. It's the positive things, it's the good things, it's the middle things. It's still a leader in culture in the way the world is going to go. It's something that gets people to focus. And I think with this piece, as I mentioned here when I was posting directly to him, great poignant piece. As for those pearl clutchers in the comments, as I tell folk, this tendency of easily offended happens everywhere. Floyd has been turned into a sacred messiah by many who care little to the actual abuses that they and others are subjected to. And these things are relative. And I posted my Floyd of Nazareth video where I did an image where it's George Floyd getting knelt on one side and Jesus getting knelt on the other side. And this was based on some absurd people, mostly on the political right in the United States of America, who will walk around and believe in the Messiah story as complete truth and then start talking about how the George Floyd thing is fake. No, George Floyd was in an incident that led to his death with overstepping of what this policeman did, Derek Chauvin, and the whole system. So there is something in the system, there is something in those laws that gets to a situation where he can actually be part of it. Is it systematic? I think it might be systematic rather than systemic, even though I have very great objections just to the state itself, which is an institution that has a monopoly of force over any given area, having enforcement agents. Chances are that there is an allowance for those agents to enact force in ways that is going to violate the freedoms and personhood of people they interact with, no matter the race, no matter all these other considerations. That's just the general nature of the whole organizations. So there is something actual systemic about that. That one, I will admit, there is something that is in it inherently. Now, does that mean every single person who's involved in it is that way? No. It's a similar thing how you can take a certain substance that has a part about that substance that is inherently harmful, but doesn't mean every single person that ingests that substance or uses that substance is going to be harmful. You play American football, which is a sport that I played and enjoyed. It's a collision sport. There is something inherently violent. There's something systemically violent about it. Doesn't mean every single person that engages in that sport is going to use that violence with intention to hurt or cripple or injure other people. Does that mean there's going to be people who are going to be doing it? It's in the rules. It's allowed for, but doesn't mean everyone's going to do it. So here, okay, so see why. This is in bad taste. Shame on you, Gado. Pull it down and apologize. Yeah, again, you see this whole thing of demanding people do things, this is not just something in the United States of America and the left trying to censor things and get people to shut things out. No, let him post it up. Draw another cartoon, but not this, please. Yeah, good arguments and things like that. It's not an argument. I guess it's just a statement. I have to say not an argument for everything. This is just a statement, but I mean, provide some arguments which might be more convincing. He might actually listen to you. This piece is it's no joke, a perfect metaphor that depicts precisely the kind of position the judiciary in Kenya is as an institution right now. You can't be taught how to be analytical. You either get it or you miss the whole point. And this is one thing I like about art. And this is one thing I notice with myself too when I'm communicating and also when I look out. Sometimes I look at Black Lives Matter and what they're doing. I'm like, okay, so what is it exactly that you're doing? I have a video coming up about systemic racism. It's something that was created by somebody with some animation. I'm going to do a response to it because that was their definition, and this response was me just going through as I listened, and it was okay, this and this, and then it got to the end of it, had the notes taken down. I'm going to do that and then talk about it a bit. So I'm trying to understand, what do they mean? Because from the words that they mean, from the things that they mean, from the statistics that I see, I don't get it. But they keep saying this thing. It could just be power grab by some people, just like when I look at the Catholic Church or the Vatican, I'm like, you guys don't really believe what you're saying. You understand it's a power grab. But the believers in general believe stuff. So I'm like, what parts of the Bible do you believe? What parts of the Catholic Church do you believe? What parts of the gospel do you think are true? So those are things I'm trying to understand with some of these things. So with this one, some people will get it and some people will get entertained, right? Some people will try to kind of see the message and some people won't. Okay, so insensitive lacks maturity. People are losing lives daily in the name of racism, and you find that hilarious. Have always liked your cartoons, but this is below the belt. Okay, I don't see anything in this image that makes me think that Gado finds this hilarious. I think, from my estimation, Gado saw this as an opportunity to attract attention to a situation here in Kenya that he found to be more important. He lives in Kenya. He's more interested in that in the country, in the things that are going on. He's considering this is a bigger threat to his day-to-day life and to day-to-day life to the people he cares about than what happened to George Floyd. And I think that happens. It happens to somebody else. So he's using it as a symbol. And this is going to be just like It's funny. It's funny how people will take offense to this. That's all the talk of the Messiah thing as well. People will take offense to this and then walk around with a crucifix, which is a literal torture symbol around their necks. I'm like, we're Christians, and there's a high level of Christians, a high number of Christians here in Kenya. Okay, where's the joke? This is a figurative representation of what is happening to the judiciary in this country. Which schools did you guys attend? Again, okay, so here, yeah, he's responding to that. It's like, where is the joke? And also, the schools you guys attend, the whole educator thing, that's another thing that is common all over the world. I mean, some people might think it's only in the United States of America, or we're the most educated with this, but that's a thing that goes. Okay, some jokes are not worth it. For goodness sake, a black man died in that picture. Draw some other cartoons, not that one. And then does the prayer sign. I think he's using prayer, not high five. But it's just like people yelled and they're like, oh, I'm a person of God. It's okay. Everything's okay after I did this internet yell at you and just told you to just take some things down and judge your work if it's not worth it. Okay, weak argument. Jesus died on a cross and y'all hang that around your necks your entire lives. Okay, yeah, exactly. So that's something I liked before. Because it's these things do happen. When I was reading this, I was like, okay. When I got to this one, I was like, okay, yeah, this might be worth actually doing an actual meme whisperer on. Okay, Uhuru and his crew are gangsters. We've become too tolerant of non-performing government and its atrocities that we perceive it as a TV gossip show. People vote based on tribe instead of growth agendas. We need to root out these corrupt boomers out of office. Hey, nice use of the word boomers there. And this is the thing, in Kenya, when they talk about politicians in their 50s, talk about, oh, the youth. We are the youth. We are the youth of the political party. The youth is about to take over and this and this. And then they also have a lot of youth engagement programs because in Kenya, I think it's like 50% of the population or more is under 35. So that's one of the things they used to sell. Oh, we'll get to these youth programs. And they talk about youthful politicians in their 50s because we still have that old tribal elder type of thing where, in fact, if you're running for political party in Kenya, you normally have to go to different tribes and meet with the Council of Elders. And the Council of Elders is people in the 70s, 80s, 90s, these little old wazes and washoshos and things like that. It's mostly wazes. Some places are shoshos because as much as people think Africa and black culture is supposedly anti-female, some people say this, but there's still a lot of importance in the females. There's still there. It's a give or take. These different communities have different dynamics between the genders, but you can't have a successful community if you're anti any one of the primary sexes in your community, and the genders are the roles that those sexes actually play in your community. Those things form the bedrock of community. So if you have an imbalance for too long, either you're too misandrist or you're too misogynist, your society is going to crumble. You have to have a situation where both people are looked for and cared for, depending on situations that fit your environment the best in order to maintain that environment. That is one thing that I just have noticed. So it might be, again, with the different confusion things where Black Lives Matter might be saying things someone like me might not understand. You might be looking out from a different culture and look at one culture and be like, why are they doing that? But you might not understand the actual histories and that culture themselves, Black Lives Matter themselves. They might be doing certain things for some time and then they get into a trap where it's like, okay, we're just going off momentum, and the reasons they initially did that for are found to be non-existent or don't exist anymore, but they keep doing that thing, and then they get in a trap, and then they could actually end their whole organism, their whole situation, their whole culture. Okay, so let's go a couple more. Unacceptable. How do you know the family won't see this thing? This is wrong. Who cares if the family? He doesn't care. He doesn't know that. You see some of these questions, like, of course he doesn't know that. Even if the family saw it, this is an image that's out there. It's out there. It can be used. It's for public consumption. And he's still making his point. He is more concerned with the people that are going to see this. Is it now negative if CNN posts this as a news story? If somebody else posts this, is that a negative thing? Now, is that insensitive by them? What's your opinion? So I love the fact that some people here lacks critical thinking and thinks Gado's drawings are just jokes. They are messages that need you to decipher and internalize. Yes, what Uhuru is doing is bad as what the cop did, and you should be outraged just as much. You should be. I mean, some people should be, but it's a different thing. Even people locally here in Kenya don't value certain things about their life as much as they value things in the United States of America. As I mentioned before, that image of people in, it was a slum, one of the biggest slums. I think it was Kibera slum, it might have been Mathare slum. The Mathare slum, I think, was the video that was there before. But there's multiple slums here in Kenya. Kibera slum is one of the biggest slums, if not the biggest slum in the world. It's about 1 million people living in there. Nairobi, Kenya itself is the capital city, is about 4.5 million people. So almost a quarter of the people live in this one slum. And then there's multiple other slums. So maybe up to 1.5 to 2 million people live in slum conditions. And talking about slum, corrugated metal, like open sewage. We're talking about situations that are, it's a different level of poverty than what most of you who are hearing this video might think of when I mention the word poverty. And that's just another thing that it's in my mind when people talk about civil war, they talk about poverty, they talk about violence, talk about all these unrest things happening. When I see it from places in the West, in the developed world, I don't think they think what I think they think. Because when I hear those words, I look at some of the things. When I hear poverty, my definition of poverty includes having seen and walked around in Kibera slums. For some people, that doesn't actually factor in. That's not something that's actually even considered in their mind as something that comes to their thoughts when they use that word. So it's interesting the way Kenyans jump on the American bandwagon and how some are busy weeping the loudest about the death of one American person, conveniently forgetting that many Kenyans that have died from police brutality and busy working with Black Lives Matter to appear and feel woke. So with the Black Lives Matter thing here in Kenya, you see, they do that, and that's what I'm saying. There's a difference. There's a difference with the actual terms. It's not the same. It's not the same. It's not the same thing. Many more people have died here. There was a kid who was shot during the actual early process of the whole shutdowns. Some police were walking around with an errant bullet. He was shot dead on his balcony. I don't think there was a mural done for him. There for sure weren't any like global protests about this thing. It didn't fall into this. George Floyd story has been the story of black folks versus white supremacy, story of African countries versus colonialism, neocolonialism. It has been the story of Kenyattaism versus the Kenyans, independent judiciary. So this is somebody who's going with it. You know, they're actually seeing that there is something about the messaging in there. Now, with these terms again, I've done a separate video on the colonialism and the effect of it about here in Kenya, just in Africa in general. Black folks versus white supremacy. So this is something they're seeing that, yes, this is together with the messaging. This is a symbol that has been taken and been used as a message for other things. So I think this person understands that it's in there. So insensitive, shut off, a black man died. A black judiciary is dying, suffocated by the pressure of the executive. Apt representation of our state of affairs. Sadly, some of us see nothing. That's a good one. I'm going to go with two more here. I'm amazed at how some people miss the point. Critical thinking is lacking in our institutions. This image captures perfectly what the actual state of affairs. Whereas law and constitution should protect the weak, and the strong are becoming the law at the expense of the weak, a grave matter. What is critical thinking without emotional intelligence? How would you feel if an American cartoonist drew Baby Pendo being shot to make the point that reforms are killed from an infancy stage? That was a person who lived something and died for nothing. Good message, bad symbolism. So you see, this person is giving a critique. This one is kind of cool because he actually addresses what's in here. He in the limited amount of Twitter, and this is the thing that is part of my shorty series, was trying to condense thoughts to a small enough point where I could post on Twitter or Facebook statuses and things like that, so you can get the idea and then you can build on it. And I think he put a good concise message in here. I can see what he's doing. He's giving an example that's practical. Baby Pendo is probably someone here in Kenya who was shot. I didn't hear about that story, but that does happen. People in the United States of America and other places in the world do look to Africa and say, oh, look at what white people... That is part of the whole basis of Black Lives Matter, is people looking back to what white people did in Africa hundreds of years ago and saying that effect still affects. They constantly use African starving kids in Africa for raising money and things like this. They constantly use colonialism and things like that to explain why white people, why black people in United States of America and other minorities in the rest of the world need to actually be forgiven. White guilt, white supremacy is based on a lot of those things from the past. So this person to think that that doesn't happen. That actually does happen. So they actually do use things from abroad, and I don't think Gado would care that much personally. He understands, for him to create something like this, he understands the importance. He understands that this is something, an image, a symbol that is actually very present and popular in the world right now. And by doing this, he can also actually attract attention to something. So I think I'm going to wind that down here. That's it for this meme whisper. This is me talking about this piece by Gado. You can follow me on Twitter, as I said, at Anima Salis. You can follow Gado at Gado if you're just interested in some of these things. Because I do know that there are some people, part of why I consider black people to be a separate tribe, it's not because I think they dislike Africa. They dislike where their ancestors are from. But it's how that whole move happened. There's a different thing with migrating, because even the people who have decided to migrate to the United States of America from Africa, from different places, North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, which there's a whole Sub-Saharan Africa thing. There's North Africa, but there's no South Africa. There's like South America, there's Central America, there's North America. But there's not, that doesn't happen. There's Eastern Europe, Western Europe, Southeast Asia. Those terms exist. But when you come to Africa, there's no South Africa. You can't just say South Africa and mean the continent, because the country took the name South Africa. South Africa needs to give that country back. They need to be called like Southern Africa or something like that. They need to change the name so they can free the term South Africa to mean just like the type. Because they even call it like Central Africa, but there's also a Central African Republic. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. No, that was here. It's there. It's not here. It was there. But let's leave that there. So to finish this up, what I was talking about, it's because of that move. The people who have moved, migrated willingly to the United States of America normally have closer ties to actual Africa, to their places where their ancestors came from. They still have relatives, they know where they're from, they know their language and their cultures and their behavior, so they carry some of that, and then they're kind of like, oh, they're Italian Americans, the Irish Americans, because you don't even have that whole white concept is not even quite the same as the black concept in the United States of America, because most of the people actually moved willingly from the place and they can track it back. Now that you're having these things with Ancestry.com and things like this, I think there is an increase in people starting to find out, oh, our people came from this. We're finding that majority of the actual transatlantic slave trade was from what is now about 5 different countries in West Africa. Now, these people are starting to find out and renew some of these connections. And now with the increase of information, age of understanding coming, information age, and now we're going to the age of understanding, you have the ability to actually go back and look and reach out and see what's happening in other places, see the standards of life that are happening in other places, see are some of the issues that you're having due to your location, due to your race, or is it due to the nature of certain dynamics in society and in culture. You can reach out, and there is something where they were broken apart, and just how here in Africa, you have people that started from the Bantu people, from the Nilote people, from different areas, and then they moved around. And once you moved around, and once you were outside, once you were away from the major group that you came from for long enough, you developed your own culture and you became your own tribe. And that's how the Luyas came to be, the Luos came to be, the Kalenjins, the Pokots, the Baluos. These people became different people because they might have started from the same group, from the same general place, but as you moved around, whether it was willingly or this natural disasters, you were separated, you started developing your own ways of life. And that's what I'm saying, these are separate tribes. When I say this, when I say black, does not mean African. I'm just pointing out an accurate definition of what I think those words mean, the descriptive definition. I think when they're talking about blacks, they're not descriptively talking about every single person of Negro with high melanin in their body of recent African descent. That is not, no, recent sub-Saharan African descent. That is not what they're talking about. They're talking, I feel that to be a definitive term of something. It's not all lives matter. It's not even all black lives matter. It's a specific group of black people that they're talking about when they're talking about that situation. And that's the group that when that comes up, when Black Lives Matter issues come up, I try to identify what is this group, what are the particular things you're talking about that are issues in this group, and let's address that. And then let's also address the other issues that are happening with other groups on the outside of that, because all earthlings matter to me in some way. Starting with myself, starting with the people I care for, and then going outside. And maybe you can become one of the people by following me on Twitter. And that's it for now. Thank you for listening. And that's been me on the Meme Whisperer. Till next time, goodbye.